Well, 1 minute's going to make it 4:31. Negative, Ghost Rider. Check that clock back there. That's the official one because it's the one the mayor looks at.
4:30. On Thursday, January 24th.
Thank you, sir.
2019. And I call this meeting of the Meridian Historic Preservation Commission to order. Roll call. Blaine Johnston's here. Don Kronk. Here. Josh Everts.
I am here.
Jody Alt. Present. J.C. Neri.
Present.
Courtney Wright is not here. Ed Landis.
Here.
Councilman Ty Palmer is not here. Adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President.
J.C.
Mr. President, I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion by Commissioner Neri, seconded by Commissioner Kronk for adoption of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Approval of the minutes.
I didn't get any edits for the minutes, so those should be the same.
I scanned it real fast.
Did you? Okay. Nothing spoke to you. No.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Everts.
I move that we approve the minutes for the December 27, 2018 meeting that I was not in attendance in.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Everts, seconded by Commissioner Neri for approval of the minutes for December. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Approval of monthly financial statement.
Come on.
Hold on. I
Blackstone.
got ahead of myself. You have no expenses, so it's nothing.
How do I know? I can't see him. Oh, there they are.
If
I clicked on the link and it said it was broken.
No, it didn't.
I'm joking.
Oh my gosh.
So you have no additional expenses.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Neri.
I move we approve the monthly financial statement as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Neri, seconded by Commissioner Everts for approval of the monthly financial. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Historical Society and History Center update.
I was just going to provide a quick little update. We are working with the Historical Society still on their collections. They have had a number of visitors coming through the center, which is great. 2 of their volunteers that were subbing for Robbie have decided to stay on, so they've been coming in on Thursdays. So they've got a different volunteer each day of the week, so Robbie doesn't have to do 2 days of the week. And then the rest of the update we'll kind of cover later in the agenda.
Thank you. New business. Comprehensive plan update.
What the comprehensive plan is. So why do we have a comprehensive plan? The first reason is because we have to. The state requires counties and cities to have one. At its core, that exists to protect property rights, to ensure adequate public facilities, to protect the economy, preserve natural resources, and to encourage urban development within a city. It also has 17 required topics that you're to touch on. These have kind of evolved over the last 40 plus years, but that's as they are right now. You can see there's a diverse range of items on there. The second reason, probably more important, is because we want to. The comprehensive plan gives its voice to the community. If we want Meridian to be a vibrant and caring place, we need to have this. Public involvement is at the core of the plan, and we intend public involvement to be at the core of the new plan. Good public involvement decisions made based on the plan are also the legal justification for which many of our land use decisions are based on. The document is where the public can most directly influence quality of life, goals, job housing balances, and other community-driven elements. Other plans such as the strategic plan, parks master plan, Parks Pathway Plan, and even member agency plans are also adopted by reference within the comprehensive plan. So we have a number of ACHD plans, for example, that are adopted as part of this. The comprehensive plan that we have today and the comprehensive plan that we have moving forward is and will continue to be two parts. The first one is the comprehensive plan, of course. This is focused on where we are going and then has an implementation for how we're going to do that. The other part is the existing conditions report, which represents kind of where we've been. Both of these are equally important because both of them work in concert to address the 17 required elements that we are supposed to have. Typically, the comprehensive plan is updated once every 1 or 2 years. The existing conditions report is typically updated every 3 years. So this is kind of the more interesting piece and why I'm here today. As I mentioned, we are working on a new comprehensive plan. What you see on the screen before you right now is the timeline for that. We are currently in the third phase. The first phase, values, and the second phase, vision, were almost entirely focused on public outreach. We went out to the stakeholders, spent most of the summer and fall engaging with people at workshops, community events, events out here in the plaza, all over town. And we did this before we did any work in terms of analysis. This was intentional so that we heard what the public wanted before we did, before we made any decisions. We are now in the third phase, the choices phase. This is focused on doing land use, transportation, and economic development and market analysis. This is kind of where the rubber hits the road. We are also actively working on revising the policies in the plan. I believe you all have a copy of the HPC policies currently adopted. We do not have any revised policies from our consultant yet related to the HPC policies. We expect some here in the next coming weeks. But as always, through our updates, you are all welcome to recommend or request changes, new ones, or remove those that you don't feel are appropriate anymore. Real quick, this is just kind of a high level of public involvement to date. Social media has been a really strong component of this in terms of numbers, but website engagement has also been important, as have the outreach at events, kind of almost equal, really. So all three of those have been really important: website, social media, and going to where people are. Also, maybe worth noting is that we have a steering committee. The steering committee is now met 6 times. That is made up of residents, of agency partners, of community partners, development interests, really realtors, or wide spectrum of people. They've also have several focus groups, housing, economic development, and transportation. And we have another one starting here soon on community design. They're kind of really leading this project. They're leading the charge. Staff is responsible for the work, managing the consultants, but the steering committee is making a lot of the strong recommendations and providing a lot of the direction for where we're going, based hopefully on what the public has asked us to do. So the takeaway from the first couple of phases, there are 5 value themes. Hillary, if you can pass those out, I appreciate it. Those are premier, evolving, livable, connected, and vibrant. Each one of these has 4 statements. These 4 statements and those 5 themes are entirely based off of what we've heard from the community throughout this entire process to date. The steering committee has bought off on this, and council has bought off on this. And now all the work we're doing is trying to live and breathe these statements and these themes. As we get into the weeds, there may have to be some revisions to these. But as it states, as I said, all the work we're doing right now is based off of these. I won't go into all of those, and I don't think we necessarily need to right now, but please feel free to review those, and if you have any thoughts or questions or suggestions, let me know. As I mentioned, we're in the third phase right now. We're doing market analysis, land use analysis, and transportation analysis. The idea behind all of that is to basically come up with some choices. We want people to, do we want to go left or do we want to go right? Do these land uses make sense here? Are you more interested in density for transit, or are you more interested in kind of the status quo, what we've been doing? that applies also to the policy. So after all this work's gone in, we're going to give everyone an opportunity to comment on what we kind of see as options moving forward. We'll take that, more importantly than just what you prefer, but why you prefer that. We'll revise them, and then we will make a proposal to City Council, hopefully at the end of summer, early fall, to adopt this new plan. As I mentioned, we're actively working on the policy statements. So this is kind of where I'm asking you guys to do some work. If you guys have any requests or changes, please coordinate on those with Hillary and get those to me. I am also happy, more than happy at any time to come give you guys more status updates or answer questions if you have any. So lastly, that's the website there. If you don't want to just comment on these policies, if you're interested in being more involved, if you want to work on focus groups, if you want to volunteer, if you want to sit on steering committee meetings, if you just want to know when we've provided updates or provided new resources, you can sign up on the website there. You guys have any questions? Can I help talk about policies anymore?
Mr. President?
Commissioner Evers.
Thank you for this update. This is great to see this work. I'm very excited. The focus group for community design, can you define that for me? What does that mean?
Sure. So community design is actually one of the 17 required elements.
Okay.
It doesn't really describe what that is per se. We've kind of decided that's a catch-all. So,
Okay.
For example, we will have some that are related to historic preservation are in there, at least with regard to building exteriors, preserving those exteriors. Architectural standards kind of fall in there. Park and open space fall under there. Things like preserving creeks or tiling creeks, that would fall under there. Really anything as to how the community looks and feels is kind of what we're going to be talking about that. Unless it's specific to like types of housing. So not housing, for example, is focused on single family or multifamily, but not necessarily what it looked like. This is what it looks like.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I just throw this out there. I've heard over the years many times standards for design downtown. It's never been anything anyone's wanted to champion. I hear people request it from time to time. There has been some requests for our architectural standards manual to be more specific to areas of the city, some thematic elements. So, for example, Southeast Meridian having sort of the ag heritage out there in the Hills property, Hillsdale subdivision. There's a ridge out there, so it kind of captures and is very visible, whereas kind of where we are now, or most of the rest of Middle Meridian is flat and you don't really see any topography. If you guys were interested in more architectural standards for downtown, a policy saying that and then saying you guys want to prioritize that or work on that would be something you could do. I'm not saying you need to. I'm just an example of something you could request or we could work on potentially.
Mr. President,
Ms. Neary.
Commissioners, I am following up on that. Does that fall in line with what we're talking about as kind of creating this overlay district? And we have had Caleb at a meeting talking a little bit about potentially looking at that overlay district, and I think we need to maybe connect those dots a little.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know about that?
Yeah. So,
Have we told you?
Caleb and I had a meeting with Commissioner Johnston and discussed it a little bit. We're happy to incorporate some more directive. So what the comprehensive plan can do is lend itself some credit and authority to actually staff working on things or the commission spending time working on things. So we can work on some policies that at this point say we want to do these and here's kind of what we're hoping to accomplish through that. We're not going to make the district with the comprehensive plan, but we can lay the groundwork for that to occur.
Mr. President, Commissioners, follow up on that. I think that was part of the initial conversation that we had is how us creating this district could potentially increase staff time and then review of all of those. I know that we don't want to be the authority of them, but that means that somebody within the building department or planning department does, right? Mm-hmm. They need to be then the authority. So I think if tying it into the comp plan allows them to dedicate staff time to it, we should do that, if I'm understanding that correctly.
So just a little bit of, I guess, behind the curtain. Architectural Standards Manual, you can go to meridiancity.org/design review, I think, or just go to planning page, and it has all of our standards. We currently have some for traditional neighborhood districts, but that's for Old Town, TNC and TNR districts. It's not specific to Old Town. If we create new standards, it doesn't necessarily, so there's some staff time that goes into with creating those, coordination with the architects, with the HBC, making sure those are make sense and are feasible and appropriate. But enforcing the standards afterwards, we already do design review. As long as they're measurable and kind of intelligent, it's not necessarily any burden on staff to review different standards for Old Town.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Commissioner Everett and I met earlier just to kind of discuss this, so that you're aware of it. We're going to meet with MDC, because we do need buy-in from the community if we move forward with an overlay district. So we're going to meet with MDC. If they are agreeable with what we want to do, then our next step is to meet with the property owners, get their buy-in. If they're happy with it, then I think we can go ahead and proceed with a North Main, Carlton North, for example, and start out that way. So that's where we're proceeding with it right now. So hopefully it can get accomplished. And I don't know how this tie-in is going to be if this gets done after the new comp plan is accepted. If the comp plan is amended to create this overlay district, or what happens?
So, Commissioner Johnston, you can certainly amend the comp plan afterwards. We typically do that every year or two. It's not a problem to do that. You don't necessarily have to have the whole thing fleshed out beforehand, though. I mean, a lot of the policies in the comprehensive plan say look into doing this specific work and decide. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to. Even that can help sometimes.
Okay.
So, if because a high priority and council approves it, then we know that we need to plan in planning sometime to make that happen. But you don't necessarily have to have everything fleshed out if you don't want to.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Mr. Everett.
council members, I see that there's some big buckets in this goals and objectives area where I think something like this overlay district probably fits into one of these. So I don't know that it would be anything that we would, if I look at the 50202 and develop city code to preserve and protect historic and culturally significant structures and sites, that's kind of exactly what we're talking about is, that's broad enough that we could, stay within those guardrails. And, maybe through these engagements and stuff like that, as far as our urban renewal district, the public, maybe that's where so how are these priorities assigned? Is that through stickers on a board, or is that something you guys?
Good question. So when we modify these every other year, we typically go out to the departments that are responsible for them and say, what do you want them to be? We're not the gatekeepers, we're just the stewards. So
Okay.
It's what others kind of want them to be. Ultimately, it has to be something council is comfortable with signing off on. So if you put this highest priority and you have a bunch of stuff and you want community development help, then they may not agree. But it's really what you guys think is best.
Mr. President, so last year what that looked like was JC, Dawn, and I meeting with Pete Larange from SHPO to make sure that our priorities, or the way that our priorities were lined out in the comp plan, were reflective of also the state's kind of priorities, and he helped us walk through those a little more, and then we just kind of supported. It was really minor suggestions. We changed some things from ongoing to.
So this list kind of aligns with what SHPO does?
Well, that's it's not exactly with what they do, but it was with informed input from Pete Larange, who's our representative for the CLG.
It's probably worth noting, but it kind of builds into the idea where you don't necessarily have to have the idea fleshed out. This isn't when we adopted the last comprehensive plan, we did not have a citywide strategic plan. We do now. So some of we will do this, or we are going to measure this stuff kind of fits within the strategic plan. Things really can be loose and flighty and kind of exploratory at the comp plan level now with the strategic plan in place.
Okay.
And we can also inform the strategic plan too. So.
Policy discussions, or a lot of these policy discussions, though, would be addressed in like the Friday meeting that's coming up, or there were at least some policies that included HPC type of things.
So Commissioner Johnston, Hillary, and then also Commissioner Everett. So yeah, we have a community design focus group that we're starting this Friday, which Hillary's on. There are a few of the HPC policies in here that we're going to be discussing at that focus group, but not all of them. So it's important that you guys review all of them still, too.
Okay.
I will make this another agenda item for, actually, I might just make it a reoccurring agenda item. So if you guys want to pull up a policy or discuss something more in depth, I can work with Blaine beforehand and make sure that we have the right policy called out so that we could discuss more if there's any thoughts or potential changes or potential additional policies that we'd like for the steering committee to consider. Because I don't think we can just request a, can we just request a policy or a action item to be added, or how does something get added if we did want to include something in the new comp plan?
So Commissioner Johnson and Hillary, if you guys want to add something, you would just pass it on to Hillary to me, and then we'll give it to our consultants, and that'll be funneled into the public review process.
Okay.
So I really just am a funnel, but really whatever you think is appropriate. Some of the consultants' work is going to be tasked with making sure that those things that we're revising or adding align with what the community is asking us to do. Mind you, they don't know everything, so it doesn't have to necessarily align one-to-one, but we are going to kind of have that check.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
great
much.
work.
We'll go on to the real exciting business of the year, of the day,
Of the year. Come on.
of
now.
the year. So every January, we have to elect president and vice president for the commission. So we'll do president first, vice president second. So with that, Commissioner Everts, I know you're just itching to talk.
Mr. President and Commissioners, I have been so moved by the rock-solid, stellar leadership shown by one Blaine Johnston that I would indeed like to throw his name as another fantastic year of serving as our president, if he would so be willing. Do I have to read anything formal?
Sounds good to me.
Oh, you gave me a script?
Yeah.
I did
The
it.
next order of business is that, what?
No.
Do I have to,
If you guys,
do I really have to read this?
No, you don't have to read this. It's just helpful if people get lost.
I'm sorry, I don't get lost.
confused, yes.
Mr. Neri, do I have to read this?
You just need to nominate him.
Okay. I believe I have voiced a nomination for Mr. Johnston.
I'll second that nomination.
Motion by Commissioner Everett, seconded by Commissioner Landis for nomination of Blaine Johnston for president. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion carries.
You didn't say anything, did you?
I don't
You can't
vote.
vote for yourself.
I can't vote for
yeah,
myself.
Yeah. I watched your lips.
I know.
All right.
Okay, with that one done. Vice President. Go for it.
Are you?
Wow.
Can you enlarge that for us?
I can't
No, you're
do
good.
that.
I'm just going to say, Mr. President, I move to nominate Josh Everts as vice president for this next year.
Motion by Commissioner Neri, seconded by Commissioner Cronk for nomination for Commissioner Everts to be vice president for the upcoming year. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion? Thank you for your kind work.
Thank you.
Motion carries. 6C, annual memberships.
sorry, you guys currently have the first, I believe, you have memberships only for number 2, the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, but the National Trust for Historic Preservation, I wanted to include on here as an option for you, and then also the Idaho Association of Museums. You guys aren't a museum, and even the History Center isn't necessarily considered a museum, but that membership's really affordable, and any resources that they might be able to lend us while we're talking about collections could potentially be helpful. So I wanted to include that for your consideration as well. If you want, I can go into each of these. These are just links to their individual sites to talk about what you get as a member. I think for National Trust for Historic Preservation, that's the Pass Forward Conference, and the next one is in Denver. And like I had mentioned before, the Idaho Heritage Conference has been flipped years, so it won't be in 2019, it'll be in 2020. So if you are interested in still doing a training this year, you could consider one from the National Trust or one from possibly the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions.
Can I see that third one, Hillary?
Museum one.
Can you scroll up and click on the link for Idaho Museums? Like what's in their directory? So even though our thing, Hillary, we would be able to be included in this, correct?
Correct. There's other historical societies on here that are included, and I don't think that all of those have physical museums. So I think we could be included on here.
Mr. President?
I was just going to make one comment. With the ongoing discussions having to do with the History Center and its future location and who is going to hold on to that information, exhibits, HPC is going to have a big role in that in the future. So I think that $20 is going to be well spent $20.
Yep.
So, Ms. Blackstone, right now we are just paid for our number 2 National Alliance.
Yes, you didn't have a National Trust or Idaho Association of Museums membership last year. I think you had a IM membership in the past, and you've had a trust membership in the past.
I think it's not a lot of money for us. I think they're good memberships to be involved with, and that's my 2 cents worth.
Mr. President?
Mr. Everett.
Commissioners, I'm a big fan of number 3. I'm just going to echo what you said. Like I feel like for $20, that's why I want to see were there other entities on there. I mean, it's clearly already got a lot of Idaho museums on there. People are looking for these things. I agree that we're going to be taking a bigger role with Lila's stuff, and I think starting to put some stakes in the ground where we've got some, real things that we can point to that we're owning, and I just feel there'd be a lot of value in that. Trust, I just don't know a lot about the trust and what we get. It's the biggest dollar of the 3, so I'm just not sure what's included in there that would be of value, something that we'd take advantage of. I feel like if we're, if they have online resources that we're enjoying and using, stuff like that, the $250 is not a lot of money. But if we're not using those resources, if we don't plan on going to the conferences, then I don't want to spend $250 for the sake of it's cheap when we have a budget.
They have some resources through the trust that are free that you don't have to be a member for. I think the heaviest return for that investment of $250 is conferences. So if you're not planning on going to Pass Forward, or if you're not planning on going to Main Street, then I can see where your point is. I'm also not sure. I couldn't find the cost difference for Pass Forward for a member versus a non-member. I tried to look for that to see if it was $250 or more, then it'd be easy enough. But I couldn't find that.
If I remember right,
was able to.
from past conferences, I think there is a cost difference between being members and going to Pass Forward,
Yeah.
but I don't remember the exact dollar amount.
Mr. President, Commissioners, if I remember correctly, too, only members get the early bird discount on those too.
True.
And are only eligible for grants. So there's a benefit of being a member is when you get the grant notifications. I don't know that we're applying for grants through them, but we want to probably be eligible. Just a thought.
What say ye?
What's that?
Ms. Jones.
Okay.
Ms. Neri, excuse me.
It's all good. I'm going to answer to either. Mr. President, Commissioners, I move that we renew our annual memberships for the three associations presented: the National Trust for Historic Preservation for not to exceed of $250, the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions for a not to exceed of $150, and the Idaho Association of Museums for a not to exceed of $20.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Neri, seconded by Commissioner Landis for annual membership for National Trust for Historic Preservation, National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, and Idaho Association of Museums. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Neri, do we need to make a motion for the expenditure of $420, or was the motion adequate?
I think the motion is adequate.
Okay. 6D, Historic Barns of Meridian Calendar. Ms. Neri.
Mr. President, Commissioners, I had an alert pop up on my phone over the weekend that I think I scheduled in August. We had talked about, that's how my brain works, we had talked about putting together a calendar of Meridian barns to sell or use as some sort of fundraising tool for Historic Preservation Month. We have some. I've gotten onto the Dropbox, and there's we don't quite have 12 yet. Well, we don't have 12 different barns. We have 12 different images because one of our photographers was really generous, and he took one barn and then provided a various like artistic, visuals of that. But if it's something that we still want to pursue, I think that we could easily get enough photos from existing barns and structure that we have that are still holding their structure and put a calendar together. I know that we have money for photography services already, and some of the properties that are already on our list to photograph have barns on them. So potentially we look at speeding up the timeline on that and maybe getting a couple photographed in the next month or two and then putting a calendar together. I could work with Hillary offline to get the photography scheduled for that and then try to get a proof together for the March meeting. I did a little bit of pricing at Walgreens and Walmart as far as calendar prints. And if you catch them on there like 50% off, we could probably get them for $9.99 printed, and that would be the color bound. I could call over and ask Greg if he can do something less expensive than that over at Modern Printers, if he does a bulk order. And then at $10, even if we did that as an outreach, that's a nice giveaway to somebody, but we could sell them for more than that, and people like historic barns, and if it was branded and we used our pretty logo that we'll have by May, I've decided, it could be nice. So if that's something we still want to pursue, let me know, and I'll keep working on it, and if not, I'm going to ignore the alert on my phone. And
My question, are we thinking for 2020, or are we thinking like do an 18-month calendar, so from June of 2019 through December 2020? what are our thoughts?
That's a very good question, and one I don't know why we picked that makes sense. Maybe my reminder was in January because we wanted it to be ready in January. This is all making so much more sense. We could do an 18-month calendar and run it June of 19 through December of 20 if we can get enough photos. Do we have that many barns?
I think that's an option. You had also mentioned in a previous meeting, I don't know if it was regarding the calendars or if it was regarding another outreach, but there's also a number of local artists that have
Yes,
also
Dwight.
created paintings. So Dwight was one that you'd mentioned.
Yes.
We might be able to reach out to some of those artists as well that we know for sure have paintings of barns that are Meridian barns. If you did do that, you'd have to stipend the artists for licensing that use,
Right.
especially because we could potentially be making money on that. So that's another option too, if you want to do 18 months and do every other month with a photo and
Photo versus a painting or something.
watercolor or something like that. Or you could extend the timeline and you could just do a 2020 calendar that you'd put out later in the year. Or you could even, I don't know, you could then sell it. I ran out of ideas.
Mr.
Well,
President.
manage all of these.
Commissioner Edwards.
I think very strongly that just based on things that we have to coordinate and stuff like that, and also giving us a maximum amount of time to sell the product and have it be relevant, that we should be targeting a launch of the calendar in May, but have it be a 2020 calendar. I think doing 18-month calendars are a little bit goofy. They're a little bit wonky. I think doing a mid-year to mid-year, like unless you've got a business like teaching education that's aligned to that where it makes sense, it's a honky kind of goofy thing. And last thing we want to do is like feel a lot of pressure to sell, 200 calendars in May, that if it slips into June, people feel like, oh, now I got to I think there's value in the images and just people having it for having it. But I feel like it's an easier sell if we give ourselves 6 months of, hey, we got this great calendar. It's here at the, in the History Center. I don't know how they can take money. How would we even sell the calendar? I guess that's one of my questions. Like, is that a Bill Neri question?
Mr. President, members of the Commission, Commissioner Everett, I was thinking that as you guys were talking, I think we're going to have a conversation with finance because
Yes.
how we do that. Because right now, like the History Society used to sell calendars, but that was theirs. That was all them. Again, they're only here 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, so that might be tough. So I think if the city's going to be selling it either through the clerk's office or something else, we'll have to figure that out. So having a little bit of lead time would be helpful.
Okay.
Maybe we do it through donations and just donate the money to the History Center, Historical Society.
Well, I think we should turn
So
Neri loose.
So we'll turn the
let him
Neri
come
loose
back in March with something
with our discussions
fantastic.
with.
Discussion, but because I think addressing how
Yeah.
we take money, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Like how do we collect funds? I feel pretty good about having a 2020 calendar. It's a cool year. I think we go for 12 months. I think we'll be able to get. I love the idea of having some local artwork be part of it. I mean, I think barns are barns, but there's no reason there can't be some kind of artist rendition
Sure.
of a barn in there. So that's very, very cool.
So we will proceed. Ms. Neri will get with Ms. Blackstone and
Don't delete the reminder.
Don't delete the-
talk to us again in March. Give us an update on pricing. And then we can get an update from Mr. Neri on if we can sell it or if we just donate that to the History Center. Agreeable?
Yes.
Perfect. We'll go on to old business. Virtual tour at Eggers Farm.
This is just a quick follow-up. I wanted to let you guys know that Brandon Hull was able to meet Drew Eggers on the 31st. They were able to get together, which is great. And I still don't have those images back yet, but I think he took a lot more than he was planning to. So he might only be editing the ones that he's quoted us that he could do. And then I wanted just to get some insight on you guys. I think you had already approved the expense. Oh, you hadn't approved, sorry. You hadn't yet approved the expense for like the large format stills. But I wanted to get a quote from Brandon and give him an idea of time. So I don't know if you guys want those in July or August. I think that harvest is in August. Or if the specific time doesn't necessarily matter to you, as long as it's nice out there and there's plants to be seen. I can work with him if he's got a set schedule. And then my other question regarding the virtual tour was, it was input from the communications manager, Casey Emery. I showed her the two kind of sites that we have currently, and she really wants us to share it, even though there's only 2 sites, just to get people excited about it or to let them know that we're starting this thing, and it's going to kind of be added on to as budget allows. So I wanted to ask if you guys think that Facebook's just the best and easiest way to do that, or if you have some type of method you want me to try to use to spread the word that exists.
Facebook works well for me. Mm-hmm. I don't know what other platform we could use to get them out there. So yeah, we could do a post either Meridian history, and then the city can always repost it or share it. I guess the other one would, and I don't know how relevant that would be, but LinkedIn.
Mr. President, Commissioners, we could always look at like Instagram and Twitter. I don't know what our following is on Twitter. That seems to be like what the younger people on campus use is Twitter and Instagram more than Facebook now. So I don't know if maybe that's worth looking at. Why are you looking at me like that? Millennials, I was trying to avoid that word. Millennials use Twitter and Instagram more than Facebook. I don't know what our city Twitter account looks like, but I think whatever we maybe put out through the HPC Facebook, if we could get the City of Meridian Facebook to like and share, that seems to be, because I think we have, I don't know, 150 followers to their 6,000 or something like that. So if we could do that and look at Twitter or Instagram so that we do target some of our younger viewers.
Further development on the Instagram side, less on the Twitter side, but Instagram would be our best bet to go forward with that.
I have access to the city's Instagram, so that's easier for me. I don't know how to use Twitter, so.
I don't tweet.
If the cities was squared away, they would, like I link my Instagram to my Twitter. So every time I Instagram, it just automatically fires to my Twitter account. Oh. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can. Yeah, so that way I literally have never logged into Twitter, but all my stuff, like I got like hundreds and hundreds of followers out there commenting on all my stuff, but I don't hundreds and hundreds. And I have no knowledge of how to actually use Twitter.
Great. Well, I will see if we can connect the two, because that'd be the easiest.
Oh.
Twitter now. I was just going to see if I could look at the two of them and see if they looked the same. Oh, yes. Right? They look the same.
Yeah.
Oh. Kinda. Okay, I'll figure that out.
Okay.
Any preference for time, or do I just kind of say July or August, whatever works out with Brandon's schedule?
That's fine with me. Okay, 7B, National Register nominations. Commissioner Everett and I talked about this earlier, and the week of the 4th of February, we're going to try and get a hold of the Speedway, and I'll try and schedule something with the Hungry Onion that same week and talk to both of them. They're both interested. And then we will proceed. So hopefully February, we can have a report back to the commission on how that progresses.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Everett.
I did have a conversation also with the grand the Grand Poobah or whoever for the Masonic Lodge.
Yeah.
'Cause I think it's in that, isn't it in the 50-year window now? Yeah, it is. Just getting kind of his thoughts about, more formal recognition. I mean, it's a stunning building, been a great partner for downtown and everything. I just wonder if maybe we want to add that as a third entity that we might want to engage with. He's a good dude.
Could be.
Yeah. I don't know what our thoughts are as a commission about that, but I love their building.
Last year, the Masonic Lodge contacted us, and I forwarded it on to you guys, and you guys had approved for them to be added to our walking tour as a site, as far as the app goes, not the brochure. So that was something that I don't know if everyone was aware of, but that I remember you guys approving in the past. So they're already on the walking tour app.
Okay. Let's, we'll reach out to all three.
Hillary, can you just resend that email from them? Just because I'll just use that contact, and Blaine, I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
I think it's probably the same person, but
Yeah, find out if they know who the architects were, anything like that.
I'm sure they have a thorough.
I'm sure they do.
accounting
I'm
for
sure they do, too.
Every important thing.
Yeah.
Like I was reading through our criteria for, they probably could give us volumes on all four of how important they are.
Yep.
So we'll turn those responsibilities over to them to report back to us, I think is the best.
Yeah.
For that specific customer.
Yes.
I think what I would do is I would give them these. In fact, if you don't mind, Hillary, if you could just copy and paste those four things just in an email to me when you send that over, these four criteria. I'm probably just going to engage with them and say, hey, we as a commission are considering you guys as submitting you. We need to address these four areas. Could you guys provide us a report back and maybe even invite them to, like, they're interesting people, like invite them to come and brief us on how they address these four areas, and they'll probably hammer this, so.
Perfect. Historic Preservation Month 2019, which will be in May.
Guys, at the last meeting, we asked about developing a committee, and then everybody was interested on being on the committee. So I wanted to see if you guys would just be willing to devote a chunk of your February time to go over some of the current discussions, and then break out those things into like who's going to lead which charge. If you guys wanted to take time to do that today, you could, but I'd like us to kind of set aside the time to actually discuss Historic Preservation Month, since we had 5 people interested in being on the committee in the past. Or if you'd like to have a special meeting, we could do that as well.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Everett.
I would vote for a special meeting only because I know that I'm not going to be at our February meeting. So I don't want to add my name as a number 6 for having any responsibilities. But this is our big thing every year, so it would be nice to. I'd like to be a part of the planning discussions, and I'm happy to take on work as well. I'm joking.
Maybe we could do part of the walking tour again like we did last year. That was fun.
I think there's some great lessons learned from last year. Like we've seemed to have gotten better over the last couple of years. So that's why I'd like to like sit down. I mean, Don and I were, all of us, we were crushed. It was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It's really nice out there because we had about our thing in, was it June? And where the teachers came and did their stuff, and it was just the public that came. And there were a lot of very interested people, and so that was just, they're not alone, so there's others as well.
Okay, suggestions then for a time to do a special meeting, or do you guys want me to do a doodle poll? How do you want me to do that if you want a special meeting to discuss in more detail?
Mr. President, Commissioners, is our timeline to try to do 2 meetings in February? We wouldn't want to do too much past that, I would assume, because then we get close to May.
I'm thinking February. Commissioner Everett, you said you're leaving the 20th?
I am, in fact, leaving on the 20th. And not to and don't schedule all this around me. I mean, Dawn was there right with me, so if it's yeah, I mean, she can tell you anything that I can tell you, and it'll probably be more accurate. So I guess my suggestion is maybe we don't want to create a burden of an additional meeting. Maybe you guys can meet in February. I do think I'm with you, Hillary. I think carving out some time where we're not going through this kind of stuff, but saying, okay, here's exactly what we're going to do, and then just tell them, back brief me. I think trying to find maybe another time might be a bridge to. I'm looking at my calendar, and it's crazy. So, like, I could literally do the 19th kind of thing. Like that Tuesday night, I think I'd get back from Salt Lake City on the 18th. So,
And I've got a meeting on the 19th.
yeah. So let's call it a bridge too far. I think maybe we just plan for
Voting time to that.
devoting
Yeah,
time.
let's just we'll devote time in February meeting.
I think we know what we want to do. It's just
If you have additional input that you want them to talk about,
yes.
email me and
Perfect.
head, and then they can talk about it at the
done. Like my snow cone idea. You and I talked about that, Hillary? Or was it the cotton candy? I forget which one I dropped on you. Providing really old cotton candy and calling it historic and charging a premium? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was a good idea. Write that down, cotton candy, old, stale. Thank you.
7D, consideration for a college-level intern for Historical Society assistants.
So you guys brought this up in December, but we didn't really talk about exactly what the next steps would be. So I called HR, and they basically said that they need somebody to write up, not a job description, but kind of a job summary. What the criteria would be that we're looking for, also kind of what credits we're looking to be able to offer. I chatted briefly with Jody before this. So Jody, do you want to share a little bit about what you know?
Mr. President and Commissioners, I have put together an internship for the Basque Museum and Cultural Center over the last 10 years, so I have done some of this and can work on this, and would be happy to present something at the next meeting
Okay,
as an idea, if you'd like me to.
please.
Thank you.
And then the other consideration would be, where do you guys want this notice or internship to be posted? Do you want it at all of the local colleges through the history departments? Did you have any specific thoughts or feelings on where it's distributed to? Because that's the other thing I have to share with Laura Lee from HR is where we want it distributed to.
Mr. President?
Commissioner Rivers.
Can we just make that a deliverable from Commissioner Alt, that she would recommend places to post that? Because if you've done this, then you know where to send them.
Yes.
Yep.
Great, excellent.
Perfect.
Check.
All right, 7E, digital map of photographed properties.
In meetings past, we talked about what HPC wants to do with the photographs from properties, and we talked about posting them on Facebook. But then again, Casey Emery pointed out to me that another option for you guys would be to create something like a story map like the Art Commission has for their public art tour. Now that we have enough properties, that might be something that we could do. We could post on Facebook and then link also to a public art map so they could find additional properties, or a historic properties map. This was the model that IT made for the public art tour, but they might be able to change it up. I know some of the properties we have multiple images for, so we might be able to do, say, 2 images in one pullout instead of 1 image and some context. But that might be a nice project also down the line that we could add more context to each of those properties as well. Or if, as we're visiting with the people or as we contact them to learn a little bit about the history of their family at that property, that's something that we could add to a tour like this as well. If you're interested in this, I can follow up with IT and see how long it would take them to put something together with what we already have. I know the initial setup took some time for the public art tour, but all I do is request an update from Matt Hoffman, and he updates it as we have new public art. So I think as far as building it, that takes time, but adding to it is less intensive. If you don't want to use this, though, you don't need to either. It's just another option.
Mr. President.
Rivers.
Great Blackstone. Do you get any statistical data on how this is being used right now by the Arts Commission, or like what kind of traffic they're getting?
Yes, IT does. I don't ask for it. I don't always ask for how many hits it gets. Sometimes I just see Matt in the hall and he's like, wow, it's really popular this month. And I'm like, great. So I could get more hard, fast data.
Yeah,
and
really,
bring back
really
to you.
popular is interesting, but not measurable. So I'm really
He's
curious.
seeing
You're a numbers
numbers,
guy.
I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I love if it's an easy thing for them to do, and this is ArcGIS, so it's not rocket science for them. I mean, there's some work up front, but I think we should be taking advantage of all city-related things. I mean, we are a commission for the city of Meridian. They've got a great product here. IT's worked really hard on it. If they're actually generating some viewership that they're excited about, then we should definitely be a part of that and get our stuff out there. More pins, more neat things for people to look at. Yeah, I would love to hear from IT. Maybe we can even have them come and give a little report and the thing do some due diligence to say, hey, here's how long it would take to get your stuff in there. Because we certainly have a lot of historical information that we could be adding along with these great pictures and everything. So
I will follow up with IT and get more info and then ask them to possibly come back and present maybe in March. So that-
Let's do March. February's going to be busy, but if we can do March.
So Hillary, what's the legend between blue, red, and green? Do you know?
I know he needs to post that. So
Yeah.
blues are traffic boxes,
Okay.
and then reds are physical installations, and then
Okay.
green is a mural.
Okay. All right.
He was going to post the legend like up here.
Oh, he actually writes it up there. Red tabs show statues. Blue tabs, Ada County Highway District traffic box.
Okay.
But no green.
Yeah, I think he just needs to add green.
Cool.
For you guys, if you wanted differentiated tabs, you could have ones that are on your tour and ones that aren't on your tour. If you even needed differentiated tabs, we could get into those weeds later, though.
Have you ever looked at this on a mobile device to see how mobile enabled it is? What kind of experience you get?
If not,
Okay. I'm done.
link to it though is on in your agenda packet if you want
Okay.
to
Oh,
try that
hell-
out on your own.
Hello. Thank you.
All right, 8A, annual report to City Council.
This is just asking you guys to mark your calendars. We selected February 12th, which is a workshop. I think it's at 3 o'clock. I don't know why I wrote 3:30. It's at 3 o'clock, correct, Bill? Yeah. So if you're marking on your calendar, 3 o'clock. I included the final report and the drafted. There were not very many changes. I can't even remember what they were. It was minor changes to, or between the final and the drafted reports. I can update this report so it reflects proper names now, though. More of an FYI. 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. So, Children's Museum of Idaho.
Mr. President, Commissioners, just a quick update. We are still seeing record number of attendees there. We expected it to kind of taper off into the second month, and it really hasn't, which is great. It's a great problem to have. We've brought on some new staff, and they seem to be doing really well. We are working on updating bylaws and sort of changing the structure of our board. All of our board members signed on for a 1-year term, which actually for most people expires sometime between April and July of this year. So I know some of our board members continue or expect to renew their term and then stay on for an additional 3 years. Some of our board members are capped out with other responsibilities and they'll be stepping down from the board. So the reason I bring that up is if you have an interest in this project and you want to maybe be involved in a new or different way, be watching for that. We will post when there's board vacancies if joining another board is something that seems exciting to you. The other thing that we are in desperate need of is volunteers. So if you yourself are looking for an extra project or you know somebody who might be home looking for an extra project, we desperately need volunteers. We are asking for volunteers who can provide consistent hours and not, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but, I'm available every Tuesday from 8 to noon, something like that, so that we can work staff around that. While we're bringing on additional staff, we're also bringing on staff that, they are largely part-time because they're working parents, and so they're balancing home lives with this as their job. So we're filling in with volunteers. So we need volunteers. And we are looking at other agencies to help with that, but if you yourself can put the word out, that would be awesome. We also are making some updates inside the facility because we're doing well. There's some money for upgrades now. So we're encouraging people, if they haven't already bought an annual pass, to get one because things will be different in March than they were in December as far as just some technology that's going to be available. We have some really awesome software being written so that kids can experience, like Inside of the Plane is a good example. There's 2 different programs that'll be running in there. One will be like a Doppler radar so the kids can see what that looks like as far as weather patterns and then other air vehicles coming through, whether that's a plane or something military. And then we'll be looking at distance of driving versus flying. So some maps to show if you drive to New York, it looks like this. And if you take a train, it looks like this. And if you fly, it looks like this. And so that they can see some of those comparisons as well. And that'll be an interactive software that the kids will actually be able to get in the plane and kind of click through. Similar ones are being installed in the pirate ship and in the spaceship as well. So if you took your kids in December, bring them back.
Cool.
All good things.
Good. Next meeting. Ms. Blackstone, do I read this right? The 21st, not the 28th?
Sorry, that should be the 28th, 4th Thursday.
Still in Aruba.
You can join us remotely.
We'll work on that. Hillary and I can tackle that technology
No
challenge.
FaceTime.
0.
3 o'clock, 3:30,
4:30.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
It's been a long day.
This was posted a long time ago. I will get it fixed.
So next meeting will be February 28th at 4:30 p.m.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Evers.
outside of any further discussions, I move we adjourn this meeting.
I'll second.
I was all over that. Shut it down.
Motion by Commissioner Everts, seconded by Commissioner Neri to adjourn. With that, Commissioner Landis, it's been fun. Sorry to see you leave.
Congratulations.
Congratulations on your job.
Huge.
Thank you.
So, it's been a pleasure.
You got to
It
take.
absolutely has. Yeah. Thank you for your service.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's been great.
So.
Are you voting?